The youngest and most valiant knight at Gothic's new round table, or should that be drawing board, was an architect named Augustus Pugin. Aged just 24, he published what would become one of the most influential books of the age. The British Library holds the original copy of a work that would reshape the Victorian world. Contrasts, an argument for the superiority of the Gothic style, is a none too subtle rant by a distinctly angry young man. This is a very rare and precious book. It's Pugin's own copy of Contrasts, and it's even had bound into it his own drawings. Now, Pugin sought to ram his argument down the throats of those reading his book with a series of deliberately very unfair contrasts between modern architecture, bad, Gothic architecture, good. But although Pugin's subject in this book is nominally architecture, I think his real subject is the modern city and its ills. That's what he's really trying to get at. That's what he's really trying to understand. That's what he's really trying to cure. On the one hand, Pugin presents us with a modern city. Factories, chimneys, gasworks, the workhouse, modern bridge. It's a soulless, barren, industrial, commercial, sprawling, vast, impersonal place. Against that, he sets a medieval town where man goes about his daily business under the eye of God, guarded by these great towering church and cathedral spires. Everything is in order, everything is quiet, everything is tranquil. So godlessness contrasted with spirituality. And there's something wonderfully naive about the book, of course, because in it Pugin is saying, if we build as they once did in the Middle Ages, then suddenly everyone will believe in God, everyone will be cared for, looked after, and society will be made better. Of course, life isn't quite as simple as that. He might have been a utopian, but Pugin perfectly caught the mood of a Britain obsessed by fantasies of a glorious medieval past. This was a match made in heaven, and it would produce its greatest offspring from the flames of destruction. When the medieval Palace of Westminster burnt to the ground in 1834, it was decreed that the new Houses of Parliament should be built in the Gothic style. Not least because classical architecture was tainted by association with post-revolutionary Republican France. So the government turned to Pugin to cover its new home with medieval detail, both outside and in. Begun in 1838, just a year after Victoria came to the throne, it's the embodiment of a very British democracy. A new Jerusalem, fusing ancient heritage with modern empire. It's crammed with Pugin's spectacular designs. Ornate floor tiles, elaborate window tracery, graceful fan vault ceilings. But the greatest jewel in Pugin's crown is the chamber of the House of Lords. Now, admittedly, a few things have changed in the chamber of the House of Lords since Pugin's time. There's this rather wonderful swarm of microphones to enable the Lords to be heard. But other than that, it's remained remarkably as it was created by Pugin. And wow, what a profusion, obsessive profusion of detail. The great gold gilt throne, these carved wooden animals, where the lords themselves sit are rather like choir stalls. It's as if Pugin wanted to turn this space of political debate into a kind of secular church. I think he expended so much blood, sweat and tears on this place because he felt it was a really important commission for him, a chance for him to stamp the Gothic on the proceedings of political life. Pugin dreamed that this benevolent, conservative, feudal image of the past would stamp a moral vision on those who ran the country. For the politicians themselves, it represented something else, a kind of continuity, a soothing reassurance that Britain was immune to the political revolutions sweeping the continent. And perhaps that's its weakness. The problem with it, as a space, I think, is that it breeds a kind of soporific indifference to the problems of the present. What he's created is a space in which it's wonderfully easy to forget about all of the problems of the present, all of the problems of the modern city, all of the problems of the poor, the problems that so engaged and enraged Pugin, and simply to lose yourself in the dream of a past. The natural response is actually just to fall asleep. The Houses of Parliament are the buildings for which Pugin is best remembered. But to see the perfect expression of the gospel according to Pugin, you have to travel 150 miles north. To St Giles's Church, Staffordshire, which he completed in 1840. Never was he given more freedom to express his belief that the soul of Britain could be saved through bricks and mortar and rich decoration. It was very important to Pugin to carry the good Gothic fight into the heartlands of the Industrial Revolution, to bring light, colour, spirituality to those whose lives were being blighted by the soot and the grime of heavy industry. I think that's why he jumped at the chance to create this church here in Cheadle, not far from Stoke-on-Trent, with its potteries, surrounded by mines and the slag heaps of the new mining industry. And I think there's something almost desperate about the riotous profusion of colour and design that Pugin flung at this church. It's as if he wanted to squeeze the entire tradition of ancient Christianity, at least in terms of art and design, into one building. The gilded lions seem to contain echoes of ancient Venice. Above there are these roundels of saints and prophets that echo the art of Byzantium, stained glass windows, a baptismal font that seems to recall the objects of the ancient English Middle Ages. Everywhere, colour, pattern, design, surfaces crawling with it. But for all its beauty, for all its splendour, there's something a bit too much about Pugin's church at Cheadle. This is Gothic architecture fed on opium. There's a touch of mania about it. Pugin stood for Gothic's bright side, but he met a very dark Gothic end. With astonishing, obsessive energy, he built dozens of churches, convents, cathedrals, private houses. And he didn't just exhaust himself. he drove himself mad. By the age of 40, he was dead. Pugin's dream was a kind of mourning for a past that had gone forever. Even his most heroic buildings had a haunting melancholy about them. Perhaps we shouldn't be surprised that his Gothic visions seem so conflicted, so contradictory. After all, he lived in an age of contradictions.